If you're in your first year of landing a DevOps or Kubernetes job, you should not be using AI. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly why I think this. My name is Misha van den Berg. I'm a DevOps engineer, and I've helped over 1,000 people land six-figure Kubernetes and DevOps jobs. This is what I do for a living, and it's very important to me that I give you and my students the correct advice. So I've spent several weeks thinking about this, tearing this argument apart, and really coming with the best conclusion to this, which is you should not be using AI in your first year. So let's dive into it. My company and the place where I teach is called KubeCraft, and I chose that name very deliberately. It is Cube for Kubernetes, Craft for the craftsmanship, because to run Kubernetes clusters and to provide modern infrastructure, to me, is a craft. It's something that requires deep study and a high skill level in order to do it efficiently. And I think that this is not easily replicated by AI, not with the current state, not with the current models that we see. But for software engineering, the story is very different. If you are on tech Twitter recently, you have seen the Claude Code hype, you have seen Ralph. And if you don't know what Ralph is, you can check out this video. I made a video about explaining what it is. But fundamentally, software development is now costs $10 an hour. Generating code is now cheaper than someone flipping burgers at McDonald's. Software development is now outsourced to AI agents, mostly. Software engineering and steering the agents is a whole different story. But the thing is, software engineers now need to become AI native. They need to start working with AI in order to have a competitive advantage. And this is why I was thinking, well, shouldn't DevOps engineers also become AI native? But the answer is no. The answer that I arrived at is no. For the first year, you should learn how to wield the tools yourself properly. I recommend my students, and I'm recommending you, to learn Linux the hard way, by hand, using Vim, using only Bash for at least 6 months to a year. And the reason I say this is because in order to build these skills properly and to get the sense of technical understanding and the ability to debug things without just using man pages, you're not going to learn these skills. Every time that you run into a problem, you're going to be asking ChatGPT about it. And yes, there are ways of using ChatGPT and asking it to be your mentor and that kind of thing. But the reality is that average people do not have the discipline to actually use ChatGPT in such a way. Most people are going to ask it for an answer, blindly copying that answer, and then using that to solve their problem. And now you might be thinking, well, what's the issue? You have ChatGPT available to you all the time, right? You can just use AI as a DevOps engineer. That is true to some degree, but what you have to think about here is reverse engineering your interview situation. And this is what most people don't think about. Most people won't think this far ahead. So right now, put yourself in that situation. You're sitting at your DevOps interview, you have the hiring manager across you, and he's asking you about stories. He's asking you about things that you have implemented in production. For example, let's say that you have a few projects on your CV, and then he asks about the implementation of a technical detail. He asks you how that went. And then you're going to talk about a few problems that you had. And then he asks you, how did you solve them? If your answer in that situation is, I asked ChatGPT, then you are not going to be hired for that position. Asking ChatGPT makes you helpless in the case where ChatGPT does not have the answer. When I interview DevOps candidates, I look for people who know how to search the man pages for information. I'm looking for people who are fast on the command line and who can get information by, for example, kubectl get events, grabbing that or taking out a few columns and sorting the information in order of recency, that kind of thing. If only thing you do is just copying the logs, pasting it into ChatGPT and waiting for ChatGPT to answer it, you are at the mercy of ChatGPT. And that person, I do not want to let loose on my infrastructure. I do not have the confidence that this person actually understands what he's doing and that he truly understands the commands that he types into the command line. So that is how you have to think about this. You have to reverse engineer the interview situation. And if for every question your answer is, I asked ChatGPT and it gave me the answer, you are on the wrong track. Now, this is very different for someone who is going for a software engineering interview, where modern software engineering expects you to be AI native and to have AI skills. Those people would benefit from saying, I use Claude Code to generate 10x the amount of code in 1 hour, that kind of thing. There, it's an asset to have these AI tools down as a junior. And for infrastructure, the bar is higher and the responsibility is a lot higher. Someone who enters commands on the command line needs to completely understand what he is doing at all times, because if he doesn't, he can do a lot of damage. And when I'm hiring a DevOps engineer, I need to trust this person that he knows exactly what he's doing with every command that he types into the command line. And then the second point is that AI works as an amplifier, okay? To prompt AI efficiently, you need to have a certain baseline level of understanding of the problem that you're trying to solve with AI. And I think that, like, for example, AI agents, they are still not able to work properly and autonomously on infrastructure. Like, you cannot let loose an AI agent on Kubernetes clusters and trust that it will do the right thing. Like, AI agents, they are limited to their context window. And if you don't know what that is, I strongly recommend you do some more research into this. But an AI agent can only hold so much in its current context. And managing a Kubernetes cluster is already too much context. So imagine not just one cluster, but an entire system, a distributed system of multiple clusters with multiple layers of infrastructure. The AI agents are not able to hold all of that context in their brains yet. Not yet. And that's why I think DevOps is still relatively safe from AI replacement. So a junior DevOps engineer, a junior infrastructure engineer already needs a fairly high level of systems thinking, okay? And you're only going to build these skills by doing the work yourself and going the long route, having these long debugging sessions, fighting with YAML indentation, working on the file system yourself without using Claude Code. That is how you develop these debugging skills and the debugging mindset. Going back to the point of AI being an amplifier, if you have zero skills, you cannot amplify them. So your baseline level of skill needs to be fairly high. And when you have a high level of skill, that's when AI agents become very useful. Like, I'm a senior DevOps engineer, and I am now able to use AI agents to automate a lot of my work, but they still need a ton of coaxing. They need a lot of direction, and I can only give them very short, well-specified tasks, and I still have to kind of watch what they're doing, because very often they will just lose track and start hallucinating and, frankly, do damaging things in production. Like, I've had to fix a couple of issues that my AI agents have done on my home lab already, for example. So, yeah, it's not possible to just let them loose, and they need a very, very specific way of prompting and a high skill level for prompting them. And I'm not the only one who's saying this. I wrote a tweet recently about this, where I basically explain what I just said and thinking about junior DevOps roles and AI. And the creator of Ralph, again, there's a video up here if you don't know what Ralph is, but the creator of Ralph, he is also very strong in infrastructure, and he actually replied to my tweet saying here that there's systems level thinking with infrastructure. I've been doing it since Sun OS, so it's all natural, and AI makes me an absolute weapon with it. And look what he says here. I'm not sure about juniors, however. There are so many concepts that need to be known about before you can even prompt for it. In other words, you need to know a high amount of concepts. You need to have a high level of skill in order to efficiently prompt these models and AI agents in infrastructure situations. So he says, I don't know regarding juniors. I definitely would not hire a junior who doesn't know the AI inferencing loop and hasn't built an agent yet. So what he's saying here is this is for software engineers, but here he says, yeah, perhaps I would take a very heavy approach of mentoring concepts and systems thinking, developing the human. And that's very good advice. So DevOps engineering is not just about infrastructure and coding and that kind of thing. DevOps is also about understanding business needs and communicating with dev teams and mapping out requirements and that kind of thing. So there is a strong human side as well, which simply cannot be replaced by AI because by its definition, they are people skills, they're human skills. What he's saying here about not knowing the AI inferencing loop and hasn't built an agent yet, I do agree, but I would say do this after your first year. Like, again, I'm not saying you should never use AI as a DevOps engineer. I'm just saying you should have a strong foundation before you start throwing AI in the mix here. You need to have a relatively high baseline skill level in order to be able to prompt these AI models efficiently. So that is my current stance on this. In your first year, when you're learning Kubernetes, when you're learning Linux, I would steer clear of AI. I would not use ChatGPT. In my first 2 years as a DevOps engineer, ChatGPT didn't exist yet, and I am very grateful for that. I had mentors who forced me to use Vim, who forced me to stay on Linux for 2 years before moving on to anything else, who discouraged me from using NeoVim. And I'm very, very glad that I had these mentors and that I learned it, the hard way. I took the long route, but now I have a skill set which is very safe for the next decade or so, I think. I don't think I am in danger of being replaced by AI just yet. There are many software engineers who are lying awake right now because their job is in danger, basically. So let me know what you think. If you're a senior watching this and you think this guy is full of shit, please let me know, because the most important thing to me is that I give the right advice to people. So let's enter the discussion. If you're interested in learning infrastructure skills directly from me, there will be a link down below where you can get more information about that. It's what I do for a living, and people that I coach land DevOps jobs every single week. So I'm pretty good at it. So check it out if you want to. And for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.